seem like a fun crowd, celebratory crowd, which is good because I have something to celebrate tonight. You guys, I recently became a university graduate. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I could get the Jews to applaud for an academic achievement. Thank you so much. So it's very exciting because I now have a degree I can hang on my wall that says I have a bachelor's in early modern philosophy from the University of King's College in Halifax. Yeah. Yeah. So, look out, future. I will not affect you. That's fine. That is fine. Yep. One of the requirements of my degree, though, was that I had to take a language credit. So being a plucky young Jew with a pocket full of dreams, I decided to take German, because whatever. What's the downside? I will tell you what the downside is. There is one. I arrived on my first day of German 101, and there was a lovely young, Fräulein there to teach us in a little flower dress. She was very sweet, didn't speak much English, and she thought it would be a great icebreaker to ask us the following question. Oh, so what are your preconceived notions about Germany? And like a hush fell over the classroom because everybody was afraid that if we breathed too loudly, it would come out like mass genocide. So nobody said anything. And she's looking at us all expectantly, and the silence is getting longer and longer and more uncomfortable, and no one knows what to do, and no one's saying anything. And then finally some nervous guy in the back quietly raises his hand, and he's like, beer. And we were like, beer, yes! You crazy kids love beer! Thank you, guy in the back, that's good. And then we were on a roll, Oktoberfest, Lederhosen, Bratwurst, whatever. And then some weird idiot in the front row raises his hand and is like, efficiency. And then she said, oh, what is efficiency? And then the silence came back. Because we were like, okay, how do we explain this to you without, explaining this to you? Have you ever had to, get rid of your least favorite race quickly? It's kind of like that, I'm sorry. But we managed to tell her something because in the end she said, oh, so what you're saying is that Germans are very punctual. And we were like, yeah, okay, well, Italy's kind of got you beat there, but I like where you're coming from. Their trains run on time, but you guys are doing good. Keep dreaming, Nazis. And then I shouted that and failed German 101. My mother had really mixed feelings about that. She got over it. Speaking of Jews, guys, works for any segue in the show, I might add. Speaking of Jews, I recently went on a birthright program. Are you guys familiar with birthright and how it works? Some of you? Yes. For those not familiar, birthright is when a group of organized Jews come up to you and are like, are you Jewish? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, not Jewish enough. Get on the plane. And then you spend 2 weeks in Israel. That's how it works. It's an odd outreach program, but it works. And if you've ever asked yourself, oh, what would it be like to spend 2 weeks with 40 other young professional Jews on a bus in the desert? The answer is weird and hot. That's what it would be like. For one thing, Canadian Jews and Israeli Jews are not the same Jews. I did not know that till I arrived. But as it turns out, Israeli Jews are very tanned and surprisingly mean. And Canadian Jews are very pale and unsurprisingly uncomfortable around people who are tanned and mean. So, not a great combo. It's trouble, especially when you consider that our tour guide was a former IDF Black Ops agent that trusted no one. That is the man that led us around the desert for 2 weeks. Here are the things I remember about our tour guide, Yoav. I did not see the whites of his eyes for 14 days. Just wore aviators the whole time. To sleep. He kept all of his personal effects in his boots. And once when we were lost in a hike on the Golan Heights, he went like this, stopped us, and then he picked up a pinch of dirt, and then he smelled it, and then he tasted it, and then he said, "It's that way." And he was right, you guys! What is that? Oh, no! Oh! Spooky. So, I'm sure you can all imagine my terror when, at the end of the trip, all the other better Jews were getting ready to go back home to Canada, and on the last day of the trip, I had to tell Yoav that I needed to go to Jordan the next morning. He did not take that super well. He didn't take it as bad as my mother, who just wept and then fainted. She recovered. But I had to meet some friends in Jordan because my other friends who were in Lebanon were waiting for me. So that did not go over well. But, you know, because it's not like you're here and you're like, "Oh man, I'm in Winnipeg. What are some of my travel options to return to Toronto?" It's not like that. It's like, "Oh, I'm in Jew and I gotta get to Muslim. Is there like a bus I can take or something? Why are you reaching into your boot? What's in there?" But apparently there actually is a bus that you can take. But as Yoav informed me upon revealing 2 pairs of piercing blue eyes that had seen too much, this is no ordinary bus. What does that mean, Yoav? To which he replied, "It's going to be an Arab bus." To which I replied, "What does that mean, Yoav?" To which he replied, "It is very likely that you are going to be the only Jew on this bus." Now, ladies and gentlemen, I lived for several years in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I am confident that I have been the only Jew on a number of buses. For sure. For sure. But this was not the same as that. Although I did get proposed to by a Jordanian border policeman on the bus, which strangely enough has happened to me on every single bus I've ever been on. So maybe we're not so different after all, you guys. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening.